I'm gonna start the sponsors and then we'll get rolling. Okay. Year of learning, Dr. Paul Konigsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Konigsberg, Shimon Reuben ben Leibush, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nissen Hara Nissen ben Fardosa. Paul and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malcolm Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Rav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Saran Abat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Yehuda bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, many friends of Dr. Marvin Blash, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avra Meir ben Shimon. Okay. Month of Learning by Mel and Haran Heller, in memory of his father, Avram ben Zev, and by Lynn Rappaport, in memory of her husband, Avram ben Zion Kohen. Also, today is the 21st, the Day of Learning by Dee Worthy, in memory of her husband, Eliezer ben Shlomo, and Kenneth Sound, Hannah Bas Abraham. May Hashemitz have an aliyah, crank Rafiel, Dati Yashir, Shemitz Leah, L'chol b'nei Yisrael, Good Ben Shach.
Amen.
All right. Okay, did you guys get up to Mem Gimel Amud Aleph on your own?
Yeah, 43.
43, okay. Okay. I'm going to just pick us up very quickly on the bottom of 42b4. Okay.
Okay.
And then from there, we'll move right on, hopefully. Okay. So, Rabbi Zera Mai Ta'amar Lo Amar Karabi. He says, what was the reason that Rabbi Zera didn't say the view of Rava? Amalach, he would say, Mechitzot lahavriach mayim asuyot. Okay, that the walls of the ship were such that it was simply made to keep the water out. Rava Maitam Lo Amar Rabbi Zera. What's the reason that Rava didn't say like the view of Rabbi Zera? The Mahalechet Puli Alma Lo Plige. The question is, while the boat was still traveling, that wasn't where they were arguing. The argument was about. Plige, when did they argue? B'sha'amda, when the boat was stopped outside the Tchum boundary. That was where they were arguing. Excuse me. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Madnit Nami Daika. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, our Mishnah seems to spell this out in its language, right? The Mahalechet Lo Plige, that when the ship was traveling, moving, that was not when Rabbi Gamliel nor Rabbi Yeshua, where they disagreed, right? The Mai, on what? Midikatani, as it was taught the following. Maaseh Shabo Mipal Band Darsim, a situation where they were traveling from what was probably the port of Brindisi, the Hifliga Svinatam Biam, and their ship went set sail. Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, the two of them, Alchu et Kula, they felt that they could walk around the entire ship. The Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Akiva, and the two of them, Lo Zazu Me'arba Amot, they only walked within a area of Dalit Amos, right? Shiratzu lahachmir al atzmam, because they wanted to be more stringent, sorry, on themselves. So in other words, the fact that they wanted to be more stringent, more strict, may give us a hint on this issue. If you're therefore saying that they didn't disagree while the ship was moving, right? Hainu de Katani, Ratsu. Therefore, that's why they said they chose, namely, to be more stringent. Dilma Amda, okay, perhaps then if the ship had been standing, they would not have chosen to be stringent. Ela'i Amart Plige. But if you're saying that's what they're arguing about, Hai Ratsu Lahachmir, then if they were arguing, if we were talking about the ship stop, why does it right to say that they chose to be more stringent? Isuri, okay? If the ship stopped outside the tchum, then it's automatically an isur that they couldn't walk around the whole ship. Amar Rav Ashi. And so Rav Ashi, however, presents the following. Matnitin nami daika, that our Mishnah also implies this in its language. The Katani, Sfina, Dumia, Dadar, Visahar, because it teaches that the ship is similar to a pen or a stable. Madar Visahar, the Kavier, the same way that that the pen, okay, or the stable is fixed. Afsfina Nami, the Kavier. So too, when the ship is fixed in a specific place. Okay. Going on, Amar le Rav Achan. So Rav Achan now says the Berei the Rava, the son of Rava, the Rav Ashi. Hilchata Rabban Gamliel Basmina. The law is like Rabban Gamliel in regards to the ship. Hilchata Miklal the Plige. Do we say that the law is like him on the basis that there was an argument? And yes, Vahatanya, but wasn't it taught elsewhere in a Braita? Hananya ben Achi Rabbi Yoshua, okay, who was the nephew of Rabbi Yoshua, Umer Kolo Tohayom, Yashvu Vedanu B'davar Halacha. Okay, that entire day they argued back and forth and deliberated on the law. Emish Ichriya Achi Abba, okay, he said, in the evening, my father's brother, Halacha Rabban Gamliel Basrina, that the law is like Rabban Gamliel on the ship. Halacha Rabbi Akiva Badir Vasaha. But the law is like Rabbi Akiva in regards to the pen or the stable, implying that there you can only walk Daled Amos. Okay. Now, going on then, in a new piece from the text. By Rav Chananya. Rav Chananya asked the following, right? Okay. Yesh tchumim lemala ma'asara. If we have a situation where perhaps the tchum laws apply above the height of 10 tfachim, or ein tchumim lemala me'asara, or do we say that tchum laws don't apply above the height of 10 tfachim? Okay, and now we give an example. Okay, Amor, let's say we have a post or a pillar, right? Gavoa asara, and it is 10 tfachim high, right? V'rachav arba'ah, and 4 tfachim wide, right? Lo tibayalach de'ara smichatahi. We don't even have to question, okay, that it is similar to the area, to the surrounding area, right? Ki tibayalach, when do you have to ask the question? Ba'amod gavoa asara, when the pillar or the post is 10 tfachim high, ve'eno rachav arba'ah, but it's not a width of 4 tfachim, okay? Inami dika'azil b'kfitza, okay? So the Gemara asks, right, if that's the case, all right, maybe it's possible to say, okay, that by jumping, okay, onto the pillar or onto the post, okay, the person may go above the 10 tfachim, okay, and therefore, what's the situation? Lishna achrina, or perhaps we have other language that phrases it differently. Bisfina mai, okay, on the ship, okay, what do we say is the status? Okay, if the distance between the top of the walls of the sides of the ship and the depth of the water, okay, where the floor of the ocean or the floor of the river or whatever, okay, from that floor till the top of the sides of the ship is more than 10 tfachim, okay? It's possible the water could be certain depth, and then you have the sides of the ship that are higher up, okay? So what happens? What's the situation? Amar Rav Oshaya, says Rav Oshaya as follows, Tashma, listen to the following. Maaseh Shabau Mipal Dan Rasin. Again, the following same story. It happened that these Tanaim came from Brandis. Behifliga Sfinatam Biyam V'chule. And it set sail, right? I amart b'shlema yesh tchumim mishum hachiratzu. If you say that therefore that you have these boundaries, okay, these limits, then we can understand why the two sages who chose to be more stringent did so, because they were saying that it's above 10 tfachim, therefore it's a problem. Ela iyamart ein tchumim. If you say that there are not these tchumim, amai ratzu. Why then would you say that they chose to be more stringent? Kid amar Rava. So the only answer we can come up with is similar to what we had in explanation before, as recited by Rava, b'mahalechet b'rakat. In other words, that when they were traveling on the boat, they were no longer in the ocean, but they were traveling along, let's say, swampy waters, okay, canals, or things like that. Hachanami b'mahalechet b'rakat. Here too, we might say that they were traveling in more shallow or swampy waters. Okay? Now, Gemara is going to tell us, okay, in this situation, if it's less than 10 tfachim, the question is, does the prohibition apply? Tashma, pam echad lo nichnasu lenamal ad shechashecha b'chulei. Okay, one time they did not enter the port, okay, until it was already dark. I amart b'shlema yesh tchumim shapir. If he said then that they are within the boundaries, okay, because once they're in the port, they're considered in the boundaries of that city, within its, okay, fine. Ela iyamart ein tchumim. But if you say there are no boundaries, ki lo hainu b'toch hatchum, okay, and they were no longer in the tchum, mai have, what's the situation? Amar Rava v'mahalechet b'rakat. Says Rava, that's because they were going into the shallow water. Right? Tashma, listen to the following bright. Hani shab shemata the it amram v'tziprari. Right? There were these, we're going to say now, that there were these let's call them a number of rulings, 7 rulings that were said in the morning, right? B'shavta kamei de Rav Chisda b'surah, in front of Rav Chisda in surah. Bahade panya b'shavta kamei, okay? And later in the evening, the same 7 rulings, the Rava, the Pampadita, they were said later again before the end of Shabbat to Rava in Pampadita. Now, how that's possible, it's difficult to say because the distance between one of those cities to the other is exceedingly far, especially for someone to walk. They could never have walked it a single day. Okay? Man amrinhu. So who then are we talking about? Okay. Lav Eliyahu amrinhu. Are we not talking perhaps about Elijah, who could have theoretically flown there? All right. Alma ein chumin lamala me asara. So this would seem to prove, right, that there are no tchumim above 10 tfachim, right? Why else could he have literally flown there on Shabbat? Lo, says the Gemara. Dilma Yosef Sheda Amrinu. Maybe we were talking about Yosef, the demon that could fly there. Okay? And so you can't use this as an example, as proof to say that there are no tchumim above 10 fachim. Tashma, listen to the following Brighton. Hareini Nazir Biyom Sheben David Ba. Okay? The person takes an oath, right? That he will become a Nazarite on the day that the Messiah comes, right? Mutar l'shtot yayin b'shabbatot u'biyamim tovim. Okay? If that's the case, at this point in time, we'll say, he is still permitted to drink wine on Shabbos or on Yom Tov. Okay? Because the assumption is Messiah is not going to come on a Shabbos or a Yom Tov. Okay? He's Shomer Shabbos, right? And Shomer Yom Tov. But, says our text, V'asur l'shtot yayin kol yamot hachol. But that person who took that vow, okay, is forbidden to drink wine on a weekday. Okay? Erwin, we just flipped over to Mem Gimel Amud Beis. Okay? Right? Why is that the case? Because Mashiach would come on a weekday, not on the Shabbos or Yom Tov. Okay? I amart b'shlema yesh tchumin hainu b'tishabatot u'b'yamim tovim mutar. If you were to say then that there are tchum laws that apply above 10 tfachim, okay, then why would we say that we permit the person to drink wine on Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? Because theoretically then the Mashiach could come then. Ela iyamart ein tchumim b'shabbatot u'b'yomim tovim, amai mutar. Okay, and if you say there aren't, why then did we say that it would still be permitted for him to drink on Shabbos and Yom Tov? Okay? Shani Hatam, it's different there. The Amar Kra. Why? Because the Pasuk says, Hinei anochi sholech lachem et Eliyah hanavi v'gomer. Okay? The Pasuk says, right, that behold, I will send to you Elijah the prophet before that great and awesome day will arrive. Vaha lo ata Eliyahu me'etmol. And so, since Elijah didn't come first, we know that he didn't come yesterday. Let's say Erev Shabbos. We know that the Mashiach is not coming on that Shabbos, and therefore that's why it would be permitted, okay, for him still to drink wine on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Ihachi b'chol kol yoma v'yoma nami lishtara, says the Gemara. If that's the case, if we don't expect the Mashiach to come till after Eliyahu has, so to speak, announced his forthcoming arrival, then shouldn't we say then that weekdays also he should be permitted to drink, the Nazir, person who took the vow? Daha lo ata Eliyahu me'etmol, so long as it is that Elijah didn't come the day before, previously. Ela amrinan lebeit din hagadol ata. But perhaps we might say that maybe he came to the Beit Din Gadol, but they haven't announced it yet, right? Hachanami lema lebeit din gadol ata. Here too we might say that he could have come to the Beit Din Gadol, and they simply haven't announced it publicly. Now, kvar muftach lahem v'Yisrael she'ein Eliyahu ba lo ba'arvei Shabbatot, lo ba'arvei Yamim Tovim, mipnei haTorah. But it's already been promised, says the Gemara, to the Jewish people that Elijah is not going to come on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif because of the Torah, because of the amount of effort that they would take, since they're very busy getting ready for Shabbos or getting ready for Yontif. Mashiach doesn't want to disturb their preparations, and therefore he would not come on those occasions. Kasanka da'atcha. So at what point might you have thought? Eliyahu lo ata, Mashiach nami lo ate b'malei shabda l'shtare. Since we might assume, right, that since Elijah didn't come, the Mashiach is also not going to come on the eve of Shabbos, and therefore the person who took that vow would be permitted to drink wine, etc. Eliyahu lo ate. Perhaps Eliyahu wouldn't come. Mashiach ate. But it's possible that the Mashiach himself could come. The chevan da'ate Mashiach hakol avadim hem Yisrael. Case why? Because once the Mashiach comes, then all the Gentiles ideally would help the Jews prepare for Shabbos. Okay, and therefore it wouldn't be a problem. Okay, so Gemara now wants to continue with this line of discussion. Okay, since the Mashiach didn't come on Shabbos, therefore, bechad b'Shabbat l'shtarim. So on the first day of the week, the person who took that vow should be permitted to drink wine. L'vshot minei. Okay, if that's the case, right, then maybe we'll say here, okay, that the laws don't apply. The ain't tchumim, that there are no laws here applying to tchum. The yesh tchumim, because if there are these tchumim, right, bechad b'Shabbat l'shtare, d'lo ate Eliyahu b'Shabbat, that we would need to permit him to drink on the first day of the week, because Eliyahu did not come on Shabbos. So, what happens? So the Gemara now tells us the following, right? Okay, there's a problem. Hi Tana, sfuke misvekale. This particular Tana had a difficulty. Questionable. Yesh tchumim or ein tchumim. Whether there are tchumim or not tchumim. Ula chumra. Okay? And he was deciding it for stringency. Why? Right? Dekaye, right? Because we might say in this case, all right, when did he make the vow? Emat dekanadar, ilema dekai b'chol. If we say he made the vow on a weekday, kevan dechal alei nezerut. Once the vow, okay, of a Nazirite, keeping him from drinking wine, would go into effect. Heichi atya shabta umifka'ale. How is it possible then that the Shabbos would then come and remove the prohibition from him? Ala dekai b'shabta. But perhaps he made the vow on Shabbos. The kanadar, okay, and he went ahead and made the vow. Ubiyom tov v'kanadar, okay, and there, or he made the vow on Yom Tov. V'hahu yoma desharei. And that day it was permitted for him to drink. Michan ve'elech asir lei. But at that point afterwards, then it would be prohibited for him to drink. Okay, we come back now to our story of the ship. Pam echad lo nichnasu l'namal v'chulei. Right, we said that Rabbi Gamliel had permitted them to get off the ship because he felt they had entered the port, the tchum of the city. Right? Now, we get to another situation. Okay, here, they did not enter the port till after dark. Tana shvoferet hayta lo Rabban Gamliel. Okay, this is if you have the Talmudology, it would be interesting for us to see if they have a reference to this particular situation. The implication seems to be that Rabban Gamliel had either a kind of telescope or what's called an astrolabe, okay, which is another kind of measuring device that sea captains used, okay, to determine longitude, latitude, things like that, okay, from which they could then use to determine distance. Okay? So the Gemara tells us, Tana shvoferet haita lo Rabban Gamliel, that Rabban Gamliel had this kind of tube, okay, and the Korensteinsaltz does refer to it as an astrolabe, right? Shahayama beat, that he could look in it, V'tzofeh ba'alpayim ama v'yabasha, and therefore he would look out and be able to sight how far the distance was of 2,000 amos to the land. Uknegda alpayim bayam, or likewise he could look out and see how far it was 2,000 amos out to sea. Okay. Harotze leda kama omko shel gai mevish choferet umabit ba. Okay, or if one wanted to know a depth of a area, of a valley, let's say, he could also measure it, right, in that way. Kama amko shel gai. Varotze leda kama gova o shel dekel, or if one wanted to measure the height of a palm tree, right? Moded komato, one could measure its height, vitselo, and the shadow, vitsail komato, and the, I guess, height of the shadow, and then using the astrolabe and the material and mathematics, v'yada kama gova shel dekel, and be able to know how high is the palm tree. Okay? Harotzeh shalo tishra chaya ra'ah v'tzel kever. Okay, if one wanted to likewise know, okay, that I'm going to call it the passage of the sun, so that one could determine shade on a grave, so they did not want animals, wild animals, to rest over the grave, right? Tishra chaya ra'ah b'tzel kever. No'etz kaneh ba'arba sha'ot bayom. One could take a stick or a rod and put it at the 4th hour of the day, okay? In other words, at a certain point of the day, okay, as the sun passes over, and check its shadow, v'yireh lehechan selo noteh, okay, and see how the shade of the stick, okay, what direction it slants. Mashpia ba'oleh, mashpia v'yored, okay, on the one hand it inclines towards one direction, on the other it inclines and goes down towards another direction. Okay? So, Nehemiah bered the Rav Hanilai. Okay, so that is really sort of the end of that particular story. And we get now to a sort of another story, right? Which is going to take us into a little different direction. Nehemiah is this student, right? Bered the Rav Hanilai. He's the son of Rav Hanilai, who was so engrossed in his studies. Mishkachte or Mashachte, it led Shma'ate, his studies led him out Okay, in other words, v'nafak chutz v'tchum, that he actually was so busy studying the book or reading the book that he walked outside the tchum, Shabbos. Amar le Rav Chisda, the Rav Nachman. And so Rav Chisda says to Rav Nachman the following: Nehemia talmidcha sharui b'tza'ar. Nehemia, your student, is avtzalachas, right? He's in a state of problematic because if he realizes where he is, he's beyond the tchum, and he can only move Daled Amos, right? Amar lo. So Rav Nehemiah then says to him, Aseh lo mechitza shel b'nei Adam v'yikanes. Okay. In other words, we'll gather a group of people. They'll sort of form a human chain around him to make an enclosure, and from there he'll be able to come back in to the tchum. Okay. Now, what happened? We see the following. Right? Yativ Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Achorei the Rabbah. And in another situation, we see that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was sitting behind Rabbah. V'yativ Rabbah kame the Rav Nachman. And Rabbah was sitting, okay, in front of Rav Nachman. Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak la Rabbah. And he said to him in the conversation, Mai kamabayele the Rav Chisda. What is it that Rav Chisda is asking? Ilema b'demalu gavrei askinan. If we're talking a situation where there are enough people, right? V'kamabayele hilchata karaban gamliel. Okay, don't we have a situation here that he's asking about the opinion of Rabban Gamliel? Okay, we'll just go over a little bit. Oh, ein halacha k'Rabban Gamliel. Or do we say that he's questioning and is not asking about the law regarding Rabban Gamliel? Or Dilma, or perhaps, b'delo malu gavrei eskinan. We're talking about a situation where there are not quite enough people to make this kind of boundary around him. Okay? And this is what he's asking. Halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer, or ein halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer. Is the law like Rabbi Eliezer, okay, who only would permit him, okay, 2 amos, okay, to be able to return into the tchum, or isn't the law like Rabbi Eliezer, right? And that's where we're going to stop here for now, right? Again, I apologize for the issue of the delay and the mix-up in the time. Okay.
Not a problem. Thank you, Rabbi.
All right. Take care, guys. All right.
Take care. Should be regular tomorrow morning?
Should be regular tomorrow morning. I'm assuming that Slichas will be at 7:15. Okay. And therefore, hopefully, since there's no Torah reading, as close to our 8:15 or so as we can. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.